What makes a good power system? Is it its simplicity or complexity? Is it the hacks or the power output? Is it the limitations or consequences of gaining power within those universes? I think the best power systems combine all these elements together in a way that works and in a way that influences the story. Nen from Hunter x Hunter, Cursed Energy from Jujutsu Kaisen, Devil Fruit from One Piece. These power systems work because they merge these elements together. They can be simple or complex, and they have limitations as well, which give them gravity and which give them importance and allow them to influence the stories massively. The same thing applies for web novels. Now, usually most web novels take on a classic power system style where they are usually either 7 or 9 tiers of power. Basically, a character starts out from the bottom and has to evolve 9 times before they become one of the most powerful characters within their verse. Today I'll be talking about web novels with unique power systems. Now, the first one is Lord of the Mysteries. In Lord of the Mysteries, power comes from pathways, each with sequences. There are different pathways: Error, Hermit, Door. Think of major arcana tarot cards. Now, advancement between sequences is done by consuming rare potions, accompanied by rituals, and acting like the role you want to become. Now, the risk and the limitation of this is that because the power is external, there's a high risk of madness and corruption and death. Basically, the higher you progress, the higher the risk of madness or corruption. Now, what this does to the story is, because of the risk associated with progression within the story, you cannot brute force progress. There's no such thing as instant power-ups or power-ups in the midst of adversity. Every step has to be carefully planned and carefully considered, because every step basically carries the risk of dying completely or madness at the very least. Now, if you like slow burn mystery, if you like lore-based power systems, if you like rule-based systems, you're really going to enjoy a lot of the mysteries. The second web novel is Red Hat Survey. Now, in Red Hat Survey, it follows the traditional web novel format where it has 9 levels of power, with another one beyond that, where characters essentially become godlike beings that transcend concepts like space and time. Now, when the character progresses through the lower levels of this power system, it's more focused on power output. But as they begin to progress through the higher levels, then hacks come more into play. One thing that makes this system stand out is that emotion, belief, and influence matters just as much as your raw power. So with Red Hat Survey, it takes human nature into consideration. Say, for example, you have 2 characters of the same power level, the exact same raw power level, or the exact same tier fighting or in a battle. Usually, the character with more conviction, more belief, more faith, that sort of thing usually comes out on top. But the novel does this in such a way where it is realistic. You don't see a character prevailing over circumstances regardless of how terrible they might be just because of their level of conviction or belief. No. Usually, battles are done within the mind as well as externally. So, you have, for whatever reason, 2 characters come to a disagreement and it becomes a fight. Say, for example, the rulers of 2 different countries, 2 different warring countries, it becomes a fight. Usually, the ruler that feels the most responsibility, the ruler that feels the most weight, that sort of thing usually comes out on top. But at the same time, it's not done in a way that's predictable, so it doesn't work every time. But it is a big factor within the story. Now, if you like psychological thriller, if you like mind games, if you like long-term planning, long-term scheming, you're really going to enjoy Red Hat Survey. And I recommend it to everyone in general. It's a really good novel in general. The third novel is Reverend Insanity. Now, in Reverend Insanity, power comes from what is known as goo. Goo are magical insects or artifacts. Now, again, just like Red Hat Survey, there are 9 tiers from a goo master all the way up to a goo immortal. Now, the dividing line is at the GUI Immortal, because at this stage, every GUI becomes unique. Now, because of this uniqueness, there is scarcity and there is competition. This breeds a very violent, very dog-eat-dog environment. Now, the way power is obtained, or the way a character progresses or gains more power in this novel, is by basically you have a system of GUI, different GUI insects, and you have to create a system independent to you. Now, there are different paths within the system, similar to, or loosely similar to, the way there are pathways in a lot of the mysteries. There are paths in Reverend Insanity. You have the blood path, you have lock path, key path, water path, fire path, things like that. The concept, it's not as hacks as it is in a lot of the mysteries, but it's somewhat similar. And basically your strength is derived from planning your system, gaining GUI centered around whatever path you decide to embark on. Depending on the type of path and the purity of your path. So, for example, say you take a fire path. Fire has, on a normal day, a very high level of destructiveness, which means on a basic level, you're already more powerful than most other characters within the verse because you are in that path. Now, the more pure your path, in the sense of the more fire type GUI you are able to withstand, or the more fire type GUI you are able to, refine and use, the more powerful you become. But at the same time, there is a limitation to how much GUI you can use, because you have to deal with the task of feeding them, because they are living creatures, feeding them, creating a hospitable environment, because they have different environments in which this GUI must live within the human body. And this diversity, this ecosystem of sorts being created within individuals, it breeds so much creativity and imagination that it is basically endless. This is one of the most imaginative power systems there is, period. These web novels have some of the best power systems I've seen, period. They combine the elements we've spoken about previously. They can be both simple and complex. They usually combine both hacks and power output, and there are costs and there are limitations to these systems as well, which make them infinitely more interesting, and which makes it infinitely more interesting to see how the characters navigate their way around these power systems. So that's why I think these are some of my best power systems. Let me know if you have any that you think are really, really good. I'll be in the comment section. Remember, guys, to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.